Well, a nation under the wrath of God, number 3, is a nation given over to the sins of the worst kind. Verse 24, he says, "Therefore God also gave them up to uncleanness." And this does refer to sexual impurities. He says, "In the lust and the desires of their hearts, to dishonor their bodies among themselves." Is the problem with God? Is the problem with His ability, with His love, and all these things? No. In verse 24, "In the lusts of their hearts," he says. Man is... And it says in verse 24, God gave them up. God let them go to do what they want to do. What are the desires of their hearts? To dishonor their bodies among themselves. What does he mean by that? Well, keep reading in verse 25. They exchanged the truth of God for the lie. He mentions it again. And they worship and serve the creature rather than the Creator, who is the blessed forever. Paul can't help himself from praising God. And then he explains it in verse 26. For this reason, for their apostasy, because of their apostasy, God gave them up to vile passion. For even, Paul says, their women exchange the natural use for that or what is against nature. Paul says, you want to see a culture that has been let go, that has been abandoned by God. He says, even their women. And he mentions them first. Even the women exchange the natural use for what is against nature. Madonna and Britney and the hosts of others. Even the women. Paul is saying that the woman who God created to sort of hold the family together, to be a mother, to love her children and nourish them, to love her husband. Even the women, Paul says, have gone after this sin. This was really foreign to Paul's mind. It was shocking to him, being a Hebrew, that he could look out among the Gentiles and see what they were doing. Perhaps in the open, but also behind closed doors. He says, likewise also the men, leaving their natural use, the natural use of the women, or the woman, burned in their lust for one another, men with men, committing what is shameful, and receiving in themselves the penalty of their error, which was due. You see, in verse 24, Paul says, God let this culture go. In verse 26, he says, for this reason, that is because of their sin, God gave them up again to vile passion. God gave them up, first of all, to let them do what they wanted to do. Sexual sin. And then, because of that, God in His wrath let them go again and let them do what their hearts burned to do. He let them commit acts of homosexuality. And you see, for every sin that the unbeliever commits, he heaps upon himself God's wrath and the judgment to come. So therefore, Paul says at the end of verse 27, they've received the penalty of their error which was due. And even as they did not like to retain God in their thoughts or in their knowledge, God gave them over to a debased, a depraved, a reprobate mind to do those things which are not fitting, those things that are not proper. Being filled, he says, filled to the brim with all unrighteousness, sexual immorality, and he mentions all these things, even haters of God.